Welcome to the Real Chili Podcast.
And the Golden Eagles of Marquette University in Milwaukee are bound for the Final Four for only the third time ever.
5 seconds left. Marquette down by one, trying to avoid the upset. Blue the drive, the left hand. It's good. 1 second to play. Vander Blue has put Marquette in front by one.
And I want to win every day as basketball players, as students, and I want to win every day, most importantly, as people.
Yo, 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 welcome to the Real Chili Podcast. Do not panic, folks. Do not rip your earbuds out of your ears or turn down your speakers. This is not your normal host, Mike Lavender. Mike, due to prior commitments, cannot be with us today. However, we still have a cast to give you what you need when it comes to Marquette basketball. My name is Brian Henry, joined alongside by the incomparable, the educated, and just all-around good guy, Peter Worth. Pete, how are you?
I'm great, Brian. Thank you for those sterling adjectives. I could throw a few back at you, but I would have to think long and hard about them.
Well, we can record as long as you want, so if you think of something nice to say along the way, by all means, dive in. We have a specific reason for coming on, for having a second pod in as many days, but before we dive into that and give you what you came for, Pete, there is news in the world of Marquette basketball that deserves praise, adulation of all kinds. Please give the people, if they're not aware, what's going on in the world of Marquette hoops.
Marquette fans, the wait is over. Marquette basketball has finally made a Big East tournament championship. Woo! Yes, the Marquette women's team just defeated Creighton 72-65. Just saw an ESPN article about how it's Creighton's first time in the top 25 women's ranking since 1992. See you next week, Creighton.
Shout out to Carolyn Keeger and the girls moving to the program's first tournament conference championship game since joining the Big East back in 2005-2006. They will play tomorrow night, 8 o'clock Eastern Time, 7 Central, at the Al McGuire Center. It'll be on Fox Sports 1. If you're in town, get to the building and cheer them on. God knows they deserve it. And if you're at home, throw it on TV. They have had a spectacular year, third in the league. I believe that's now their 24th win of the season, Pete. I could be wrong.
That's correct.
Awesome accomplishment, and good luck tomorrow night. Go Marquette.
Yeah, and if they play DePaul, who is favored to beat St. John's, Marquette has already defeated them twice on the year, giving DePaul's their only 2 conference losses on the year. So, hell of a year for the Lady Golden Eagles, and might as well put a stamp on it and clinch that automatic berth tomorrow night.
Absolutely. And Pete, as I just mentioned a moment ago, the great work by Carolyn Keeger, the head coach of the women's team, done this season. The reason we are on this podcast today is to dive into the work of another head coach, but this one of the men's basketball team.
Go on.
Marquette is positioned to make the NCAA tournament for the first time in 4 seasons. And that, in large part, due to the play of its players on the court, but also the job by the head coach and its coaching staff. Steve Wojciechowski has been a polarizing individual at times for part of this fan base and some of the people on this podcast, but not all. And I think it deserves discussion of the work they've done, considering that here we stand entering conference play, almost a near lock. I don't want to totally jinx it, but it certainly feels that way with how their strength of schedule and the quality wins we've had this year have topped out. So, Pete Worth, I want to lead it off this way with you. How much credit do you want to hand Steve Wojciechowski with the way this season has unfolded and with where this team is right now on the verge of an NCAA tournament?
I give him a tremendous amount of credit. Unlike you, Brian, I've kind of weathered the storm with Wojo. You know, I knew it was going to be a little rough sledding there for the first few years. First-time head coach. Anytime there's a big transition, especially a shocking one like the one when Buzz Williams left, and we're left with basically some scraps and trying to basically recruit our current players to stay. I think Wojo's done a great job in the last few years, steadily building the program. He got Henry Ellenson, a McDonald's All-American, the first one in forever for Marquette last year. Wasn't the season we had hoped for, but this team has been even better with the different amount of parts and the versatility that we can display on the offensive side, not necessarily on the defensive side. We'll get to that. But just listen to this, Brian. I mean, with Marcus Howard, Sam Hauser, Caton Reinhardt, and Andrew Rousey, all brand new to the program, their first year on the team this year, and we are now first in the nation in three-point percentage at 43%. I mean, it's outstanding. It was completely by design on Wojo's end. We struggled mightily since like the 09-10 team when we were throwing the midgets out there with Hayward and Kubion and Acker and DJO, those guys, and Jimmy Butler. We've struggled mightily as a team in basically every season shooting from three-point line. And now that we have, in just one season with 4 brand new guys, Wojo has completely revamped that aspect of the game for this team. And hopefully the defense is only going to get better with the recruits that we have coming in.
Very valid points, but also, Pete, let's not bury the lead. If we're just talking this season was headed off a cliff after this team, about 2 weeks after this team beat Villanova. 1-4 in their games following a blowout loss at Georgetown, which it felt bad then. It feels even worse now when you look back at it. But that feels like a million miles away. I would say in all of my years watching college basketball, this has been one of the most remarkable lineup shakeups and result to come from it that I've ever witnessed on a team that I've followed closely. The starting lineup, if you would have said on day one that Howard, Rousey, Wilson, Hauser, and Matt Helt was going to turn into the offensive juggernaut that it became, and stabilizing on defense. I don't want to give them good yet, but stabilizing. I think it's probably the most remarkable coaching move in the Big East this season. I don't want to take away from other people, but they were dead.
It's funny that you mentioned that, and I was heaping praise on Wojo for building the roster the way it is. Credit to him for changing it up. He didn't really have any other options,
Pete, that still takes guts to do that, because when he put that lineup out there, my first thought was, what? Like, I'm as frustrated with Luke as you are, but he's better than Helt. And holy crap, Matt Helt turns around and has a 15-10 game and we get a win. It was just, he knew he had it in him. Like, I'm sure he was probably surprised by that output if he was being honest with you. But wow, I mean, the guts to look, so much, you see it in the NBA. It's worse than college. But these coaches coach to save their jobs. That's why they call timeouts, in the last minute of the game to draw up every play in the world and just put the ball in their best player's hands and go, well, I didn't take it out of his hand. Coaches coach to give themselves job security. That's a move. That was guts. And that was a guy saying, I'm going to do whatever I can to try to give us the best chance to win, and I'm going to do whatever I can to spark the team. And I give him credit because it is year 3. And let's be honest, we were staring, missing the NCAA tournament for a 4th consecutive season. And with that move, and the play of the players, we don't want to take that away. Right. And that they are the ones that put the ball in the basket and got the stops and beat, one at Xavier, even though Xavier's in a free fall. I don't think we would have thought at the start of the season that was a game they'd go in and win. And they went and did it. Wojo got the combination to do that. I'll back it up, Pete. You kind of alluded to it off the top. I'll be the first to say, I'm not going to say I was full on doubting and I didn't think he could do it, but I was frustrated with him. Yeah. I was frustrated watching us play defense. I was frustrated watching pick and rolls carve us like a Thanksgiving turkey every single time down the floor.
Andrew Sharabas feasted on that turkey.
Oh, good. Ugh. Yes, he did, and picked the bones clean. But also, and this is where I want to pivot the conversation to, we got to look at who's on this team. these aren't still all of his players, and trust me, I'm with everybody as you roll your eyes out there. I hate that trope more than anything. Oh, he doesn't recruit all of his guys. BS. It's basketball. Coach them and teach them how to play. If you go back, and Pete and I were doing this just before the podcast, Pete, could you remind some of the people that were on Wojo's first team that he was beginning to implement his system with? Because while 2 years ago isn't that long away, I had even forgotten some of the stuff and the guys from that season. Remind people who he's been coaching.
Well, everyone's favorite scoring machine, Derek Wilson.
Oh, boy.
Freshman Sandy Cohen.
Oh, boy.
Jacking up some shots. Who was actually better his freshman year than either of the following 2 years. Matt Carlino, chucking up shots left and right.
Chucking is a polite description of what Matt Carlino did.
Yeah, Chuck is his middle name. Charles, actually. And Juan Anderson. Don't forget about Juan Anderson.
How could you?
Well, easily.
The point you're pointing out, and then if you look back to last year, Henry Ellenson gets thrown on the roster. Cheatham's a freshman. You get Tracy Carter in as a freshman. Wally Ellenson now there. Helt's in the back, but barely seeing the floor. There was all these players that just were rattling off, and then none of these guys were the most unbelievably athletic human beings, defensively speaking. And as much as I want, trust me, like I couldn't understand it. It was part of the nature of what was there, and as Mike Lavender likes to hammer me for saying, we are who we are, that is, and you can do it too, that's part of it. You can't make Luke Fisher any quicker laterally than what he is. That's the guy you got to roll out there. He's the best you got. The fact that he was able to take that this season to bring it back to this year, I think you'd agree, Pete, and for how this team really struggled at times, and we've still found a way to go 8-6 against top 50 teams in the RPI, winning at Georgia, beating Vanderbilt in the opener shockingly has turned into a very nice win. They knocked off good teams throughout the season despite having some low lows, and give him credit for dragging them along to do that and not falling off the cliff when they could have after that Georgetown loss.
Whew. You said a lot there, Brian, and I had about 3 points to follow up with you on. First of all, if you compare the senior class, this year to his first year, with the guys that we mentioned, Juan, Derek Wilson, and Carlino.
Carthrino,
three legitimate D1 players and high caliber Big East players, and Luke Fisher, Juwan Johnson, and Caton Reinhardt. And yes, the big time Marquette basketball fans were like, well, he didn't recruit Luke Fisher and Juwan Johnson, but he did convince them to stay. And without those two, especially without Fisher the last 2 years, as frustrating as he's been at times, and how overconfident we were in his skills, me being quite guilty of that. He's been a agile 7-foot defender and capable scorer, which we have not had in a while.
I'm guilty as well of that. I think all of us are still waiting for that Luke Fisher run where he, rattles off multiple games in a row where he's, the leading second. I think we think he has the talent. You're right. He's not that, but I think all of us I still quietly hope it every time he's out there. When he gets a couple hoops back to back, I'm thinking, oh, okay, come on, keep getting it to him, because it's opening up everybody else outside around him, and it makes everything else easier.
Well, that's the thing about the beginning of the year when we were talking about establishing a team identity. We have done that. We're a devastating three-point shooting team, and we don't need Luke to go out there and score 20 a game like we thought we might at the beginning of the year.
Pete, you lead me into what was my biggest critique of Steve Wojciechowski coming into the season through 2 years. Even with the caveat you want to give about the players, I thought this team had no identity its first 2 seasons. I didn't see an identity offensively, and I didn't see an identity defensively. It was you rolled the dice whenever they came out there. They didn't have one thing that you kind of looked at and said, we're going to do this well. I know what he wanted to be a hard man-to-man defensive team. He wanted to play pace and space and get guys to shoot, didn't have the guys to do it. This season, what they have given us from an offensive standpoint has been remarkable.
And that's part on Wojo for recognizing that and putting his players in position so that they concede, which is the main goal of every coach, obviously. And getting back to the lineup change, I didn't really get to talk about that much, but you got to believe that Wojo has been a little bit shocked of how well this has turned out.
Absolutely.
And granted, and we also need to mention that too. The wins came against Xavier, who lost Sumner, their best point guard. Creighton. We've been fortunate playing Creighton twice without Maurice Watson after he went down. So we've definitely had a little bit of luck.
With that said, Pete, Marquette goes and gets lit up by St. John's in New York and at Georgetown. It didn't feel like we were there was nobody we were in a spot to walk on the floor and be like, yeah, we're going to beat that team. To wrap it up, Pete, if you're offering a grade to Steve Wojciechowski for this season, what would you throw at it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I take too much stock in grade. I mean, if I had to give him one, I guess I would say a B+. I mean, you've seen development from guys, especially and Marcus Howard. I mean, 17-year-old Marcus Howard. I'm just going to continue to call him 17 years old for the entire duration he's at Marquette.
Did you know he was 17 years old? Did you research that today?
Yeah, no, I found it out.
Cool.
Just recently, yeah. So finding Marcus Howard. Getting Sam Hauser and developing him, he's shown improvement over the course, especially through the Big East, the last few games of the Big East schedule. Finding Reinhardt, finding Rousey, adding these guys. I guess encouraging Dwayne and motivating him to still be a major part of this team, even with the lack of minutes, the reduced amount of minutes for Dwayne. We've talked about that throughout the year too. I mean, you've seen a lot of development. You've seen the recruiting. And I think we're going to see a tourney appearance. And, the only thing I would say as a negative is, the defense has struggled. And that is, I think, indicative of the players that we have got in. I think he did majorly focus on getting offensive talent before he found guys that could play on the defensive end of the ball. And that's worked out so far. I mean, we're really, really rough at defense at times throughout the year. And I think this is part of his strategy coming in next year with three pretty athletic dudes coming in Jamal Cain, Theo John, and Ike Ecke. So, I'm very happy with the program as it stands. And, with the new arena coming pretty soon, it's only going to generate a little more buzz. Let me throw it to you, Brian, before I ask you a final question.
If I'm grading Steve Wojciechowski, and I am, because this is it's the Real Chili podcast, and heck, we asked the question, so why not? I like my crow with a little bit of salt, Mr. Wojciechowski. I think you've earned an A for how this season has ultimately ended. The goal is to make the NCAA tournament in this program. I think that's not just the goal; that's the expectation of the fan base, the alums, and the students, and they are pretty much on the precipice of doing that. Pete, you kind of outlined it, so I'll do it quick. There are multiple guys on this roster contributing that weren't here last year. Howard, Hauser, Rousey, Reinhardt. Helt, I know, was here. He sure as heck wasn't contributing last year.
Yeah, he didn't look like a SWAC player.
They're getting production out of Matt Helt. And oh, by the way, puts Dwayne in a reduced role to start the season and has the guts to put him back into the lineup, shake it, and now they're getting great minutes out of Dwayne Wilson. I think he's demonstrated a willingness to try everything, and trying everything in this case has worked instead of just sticking to his guns and the same 7 or 8 guys. I give Steve a lot of credit. They've tried a lot of different things. They've played a lot of different defenses, and offensively you can't criticize a thing because they've been as fun as any to watch.
And it feels great, doesn't it, Brian, going into,
It's fun. It's fun. This is the time of year.
It's awesome.
That you look forward to have fun with everybody around you, whether it's an office that you work in or your friends that you grew up with, or that your people are in pools. We talk about it, especially those that really enjoy watching college basketball. You want to just be in the conversation this time of year.
Right, exactly. And I know you're just like me when you're growing up, and Selection Sunday was another holiday, and you're filling out brackets from the time it comes out until the time you go to bed. I mean, it was there's no other feeling like that. And then the first 2 days of the tournament. I mean, everybody says that, but for huge college basketball fans like we are, like the people listening to this are, it's huge. And when your team is a part of it, which we kind of got jaded a little bit when we first started going to school in 2005. We made it for 9 straight years. We didn't know what it was like to not make it. Now we have 3 straight seasons where we didn't, and it feels that much better now that we're back in the picture.
I don't want to downplay folks that want to win the national title. That is the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
A reasonable expectation of this program, considering the money that is poured into it by the university and the just general resources it has, should be in the tournament every year. I know there's years you're going to miss. I know that's going to happen, but that is I don't think there's ever a season where Marquette should go into it thinking, oh, we have no chance of making the NCAA tournament.
And that's what the fan base, I think, needs to realize again, maybe, because we have seen reduced numbers.
Seniors on campus have never experienced it.
Right.
Think about that. You got a whole class. You got a whole graduating class of seniors that are enjoying this for the very first time. And credit Steve Wojciechowski, because he and his coaching staff, who I don't want to take anything away from as well, have played a huge role in making this happen. Pete, final thoughts as we send people off into the week. Again, women's team playing tomorrow. Men are back on Thursday. What do you got for us as we wrap it up?
Yeah, national TV for the women's tomorrow night, I should say. So check that out. Big game against Seton Hall. If you did not catch it, listen to the previous episode of the Real Chili podcast. And looking forward to hopefully matching our counterparts on the women's side by making a run to the final, which the men's team has never done.
Don't want to get ahead of ourselves and preview the NCAA tournament, but I will say this. Once Marquette is no longer playing Big East teams every single game, I think this is going to be a brutal team to prepare for, and I think the second weekend of the tournament is definitely something people could hope for and enjoy. So who knows? We're hoping we get around there. For Pete Worth, I am Brian Henry. This was the Real Chili Podcast. We'll talk to you later this week. Go Marquette.